Hello, boys and girls. This is Ms. Shemansky. I'm recording English 101 lecture for a response paper. This is the first paper that we typically write. It's very simple. It's a 5-paragraph essay, and you only need one source for it. In order to write this paper, you will need to watch this video and 2 more videos. One more will be, obviously, you need to choose a paper topic, which can be a video or just a list of topics from Blackboard. You will also need to watch the video how to document your source and how to find that source in the first place. So these are all separate videos that you will need to watch, but they're all going to be available to you on Blackboard. I'm recording this for year 2021. I'm updating my files from 2 years ago. So hopefully it's all worth it. And I'm kind of thinking if I start preparing for 2021, that it somehow makes 2020 better. So response paper, I'm going to go ahead and share with you the outline that you need to follow. And response paper, I don't want you to jump ahead either. This is what I would normally write on the board. Okay, I hope, I thought I enlarged the font, but it doesn't look like I did, so let me do it. Okay. Okay, it's not going to work. Maybe it will work. Okay. I apologize. I enlarged the font, but I don't think. Okay, so hopefully you can see this pretty well. Okay, boys and girls. So response paper is literally a response. All you have to do is find one source, and I do have videos that tell you how to do that on a paper topic of your choice, just something that you find interesting. And all you have to do is read it and find 3 things that the author mentions that you would like to respond to. The response would typically be either something you agree with or disagree with or found interesting. That's all that the response paper is that I require. It's essentially a warm-up paper, just preparing, warming up, preparing, working with just one source. How do you find it? What do I do with it? How do I cite my sources? And so the next paper will be 2-source essay. So you will already have that experience, and we will build up on this one. And then the third paper will have 6 to 8 sources. So this is just a warm-up paper. I do not go for necessarily for the longest paper, for the quantity. I go for quality. So I'm looking for quality of writing. I want you to perfect the little steps that we're taking. So essentially, what is a response paper? You need to introduce the topic in general, which is typically your introduction and thesis paragraph. You introduce the topic, and then you will introduce the author by full name and title. For example, if you decided to write on year-round schooling, you can say that that's an idea that is played with in education, and one of the authors who addresses this issue is so-and-so, and his or her article, and then you give us the title. And the last sentence of your first paragraph or of your introduction should be your thesis statement, which will tell us, you literally can say, I agree with the author when it comes to 1, 2, 3. You want to choose the 3 points of response. Or you can say, I disagree with the author on everything. It's also possible that you agree with the author on 1 point, but you disagree on 2 others. And so that is absolutely legit. The only problem arises is when students are looking for sources and they cannot find a source that gives them 3 points of something to respond to. If that happens, you move on and you keep looking. It should take you between, some students get lucky, they have a source in 20 minutes, and some will probably spend an hour or 2 looking for something that has more depth. So really between half an hour and 2 hours research time for this paper would be standard. So if you are struggling, you're not finding any sources, obviously ask me for help, because there's probably a reason why you're not finding them. For the first paper, it should be fairly easy. You don't want to choose something that is some of the things in the database that we use. It's called Academic Search Complete. That's a separate video you're going to watch. So Academic Search Complete, some of the sources are very sciencey. They're very academic. They are essentially research studies with lots of math and numbers and statistics. You don't want that. There's nothing there to respond to. However, if you find something where somebody's, an author is writing how they feel they're writing in favor or against year-round schooling or uniforms or gun control, that gives you something to respond to. So this is what we're looking for. You also don't want to use an article that is so basic, like basic, that there is essentially no depth to it. Unfortunately, Academic Search Complete does have some sources that I consider inadequate. They're just from, I'm frankly surprised we will have something from Cosmopolitan magazine. There is nothing wrong with Cosmopolitan magazine. I just don't consider it an academic source, yet it somehow ended up in the database. So I think I had students who tried to write response paper on online dating, and it was just a very lame article. There's just no depth to it. So you want to find something, and you will know it right away, whether, like, if you're not finding a good response points, that's probably the article problem. So you need to look for another one. All right, so we're done with your introduction and thesis. You introduced your topic. You introduced the title of the article, the name of the author. Be sure to give us the full name of the author. The first time you mention him or her, it has to be the full name and full title of the article. If you have 30 authors, then you list all 30 of them. I'll teach you how to take a shortcut later, but in the beginning, in the first paragraph, yes, you will list all 30. And most importantly, make sure that you have a good thesis statement. I'm sure it's been drilled into your head in high school. Thesis statement is the most important sentence of your paper. It's a skeleton. It tells us exactly what this paper will be about. So when you say, I'm going to highlight for you, I agree or disagree with the author's viewpoints on the topic, or fill in the blank, such as 1, 2, 3, I think it should be very obvious that your body will be about 1, 2, 3. So how you will approach this, this is wrong. I'm gonna cut it out right now. Yes, just like that, like it never happened. Yeah, just gonna do it, and it's as if it never happened. I fixed it. So what you are going to do for each paragraph, for 1, 2, 3, obviously the first body paragraph will be your point number 1. And what you want to say is, literally, you can write the first point the author brings up is, and then you paraphrase, summarize, or quote directly what the author said. If you're going to use quotation marks, use quotation marks. And then at the end, you have to document the source. Obviously, you don't want to be accused of plagiarism, stealing. You need to give full credit to the author. So in parentheses, you will mention the author's last name, only last name, and the year of publication. I will show you where to find this information if it's not available to you just by looking at your article. So that's actually fairly easy to find. When I say here in parentheses, see APA, APA stands for American Psychological Association. They are the group of people who design the standard how all the students and researchers should cite things in order not to be accused of plagiarism. So when I say author's last name and year of publication, I'm referring to the APA style. There is a separate video on that because it's somewhat extensive. And for the first paper, I tried to keep it very basic. Just get used to this author and year of publication thing in parentheses at the end of sentence. You do have to realize, though, if you're quoting directly, you have to finish the quote. Do not put a period there, just close the quotation marks, then open your parentheses, then give us the author's last name and year of publication with a comma in between, close parentheses, and only then you put the period, which is the end of your sentence. You don't want to end up with 2 periods, one at the end of the quote, one at the end of sentence. There's only one end of sentence. I'll come back to that. I will probably, I'll just kind of mark it in your paper if I have to, but just kind of throwing this out at you as this is your first paper. So you said the first point the author brings up, you summarized, because obviously I did not read the article, so you need to bring me up to speed. So you are telling me what the author said, you cited it, and then the second half of the paragraph is when you tell me, you finally begin your response. You can say, I agree with the author because, or I strongly disagree because, and then you either base it on personal experience or explain why you disagree, whatever is applicable in your case. So all I want to know is you've read the article, you analyzed the article, you worked with your source, and you had an opinion about the source, and you put it in standard English and delivered it to me. in nice standard English. That's what this warm-up response paper is all about. You will follow the same pattern for your second body paragraph and for your third body paragraph. And needless to say, the last section will be your conclusion, where we would typically restate thesis statement and summarize your points that you just mentioned. So all in all, with introduction, conclusion, and 3 body paragraphs, you will have a 1.5 page, 5-paragraph essay. However, we're in college, so we now have to attach a references list as required by APA. Separate video on that again. So here's a couple of things to remind you. I'm going to delete this like it never happened. Okay, so your sources page is going to be called references. Considering this is only one source, technically it's a reference, but I don't want to confuse you, so just go ahead and say references on a separate page, centered. The word references should be centered. It's pretty standard. I'm sure you've seen that. Should be double spaced, and you should be using a hanging feature. What is a hanging feature? Oh, Ms. Shimensky has another separate video for it. It's like video number 4 you have to watch. Oh my God, does this ever end? Yes, it does end. Usually the first paper, it's short, but it's overwhelming because there's so many components in order to make it done. And then for your second paper and your third paper, it gets easier. So if you feel a little bit overwhelmed, why are there so many nuances? That is why. So because there are separate videos for each one, you will watch each one separately. And as you have questions, you will ask me either by email or text, or we'll meet in Blackboard Collaborate, depending on the format of our class. But I think this concludes my brief description of what a response essay is. How do I bring myself back? No fair. Like this. Okay, so I think this more or less concludes what the response essay is. It's fairly simple. It just includes a lot of steps and sub-steps in putting it together. I don't want you to realize that I take rough draft very seriously. Rough draft is actually worth more points than final. However, I do realize it's your first draft, so don't turn in anything just to turn it in. Do ask me questions as you work on it to make sure that your draft is pretty good and strong. So this, I think, concludes my little video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.